This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this.
Hello, all you fine people out there. Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outliers Edge, where we are co-creating a world of difference, plain and simply. There's a real shift that's taken place in the last few days of just understanding and reconnecting to a mission, a purpose, and a calling. And as we get started in today's conversation, I'm going to invite you not to just to listen to it passively, but to listen to it actively and to activate that part of you that knows that you are on this earth for something massive. You're on this earth to do something with yourself, whatever that is. And that doing might be just being. I don't want to say just being. That doing might be being the best father you can be, being the best parent you can be, being the best teacher, being all of you as a leader, as a friend. Let's tap into that. You might have some epic quests that you're on. As we get into this year, bring that part of you more to the forefront. Bring that part of you that is up to big things and has a desire to contribute even more, right up to the top. And we'll play on from there. I have the pleasure today of talking to an outlier who just does exactly that. His name's Taryell Simmons, and I'm going to come into here with you right now, Taryell.
Yes,
it is an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you and also to share you with the rest of the Outliers Edge world. How you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be in this space with you too, my brother. You have a great platform here, and I'm just blessed to share space with you. So let's co-create.
Yeah, game on for that. In the doing of that, what I love to do as I start out here is I love to just take some time to just share who you are to me. It helps ground me into this moment here, and also gets us into the reality of it all. Afterwards, I'll have you share some more of the things that you're doing out in the world, but I'll share who you are to me. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So Taryell, I wanted to just jump into it, but I have to actually take the time to just see you real quick. I love that here. I love saying see you first, because we started out this conversation trying to figure out some lighting, and I recognize I recognize why that's so important to me, because at the end of the day, I want to see you, and I want my world to see you. Right. So we recently we recently started to get to know each other here. And some of the things that I'm already seeing about you is that with the things that you choose to do with tremendous heart. That's the word that's coming in here. It is professional. You don't mess around. You have the right lighting going on. You have the right audio. You take care of all the things so that it can technically go out into the world in a great, highly produced way. But the thing about it that is just so that one of the things I just feel when I enter your space and enter conversation with you, it's just this warm envelope of this tremendous heart, I know what you're doing with Rise Urban Nation. There's a lot of excellence that's in there, but it's not. But the thing about it is that it has heart and soul. I can only describe it in that way. And I'm getting I'm really excited to be in conversation with you, but I also just feel I get to come home an inner alignment when I talk to you, right? And we'll have a lot of fun. We'll be laughing, we'll be joking, we'll be having a good time, because you also keep it real, But there's something about you and the way that you choose to be in space that right now the word heart just feels it comes along tremendously with you. So thank you for being you. Thank you for bringing that to the table here. I can feel my own heart expanded here, and just be I feel actually from my chest cavity just creating more room. I'm okay, yeah, that's right. We're gonna have a lot of that in this conversation. So I'm glad to be in space with you. I'm glad that I'm really excited to see what your heart does to transform our conversation and transform the entire platform.
Likewise, brother. It's everything that I'm aiming for when I started Rise Urban Nation, just to have the heart and soul of our people as the center stone, our community of everything that we do and build from that. So I receive that. I'm thankful. I'm grateful that you see that. And I hope that I can keep illuminating that as we talk about the lighting situation that we were facing earlier.
I can tell we're gonna have so much fun because like you're able to grab onto concepts very quickly and we can just run with it, right? So Outliers, like pay attention here because like everything this is the kind of conversation where everything we say matters, right? And we may not know. It might be as a joke, it might be a thing here, but like everything has value. And I can see how like you're able to pull that out immediately, Taryell. So let's go and have some fun with that. So I shared who you are to me right now, and that helps ground me into this moment, make sure I don't lose you in the sense of this whole conversation. That being said, like I'd love to give you some space to just share a bit about yourself, whatever you like to share, both personally and professionally, to whatever extent like it really lights you up.
Yeah. So man, where do I start? I got to start with my most important title, which is dad. Having a little girl who's now 6, bringing her into the world has changed my whole world. How I look and view at life, how I build, create, co-create. And so that's the most important job that I have, a father. It's helped grounded me in new ways. It helped me learn in new ways in my life, for how I approach life, and then help to set her up for what the next generation will receive and what we leave behind, and gets you thinking about like, all right, what do I want to leave as life lessons, as things, as experiences for her, and then so that she can create the best version of herself and move along in the future for if she has kids and family and so forth. So it's got me thinking in that context and ways. Taryell Simmons, originally from Washington, D.C., born in New York, raised in D.C. My dad is a immigrant parent from Nigeria. So I grew up in a very Nigerian culture, per se. So I grew up in the dichotomy of growing up in the hood, but very much grounded in Nigerian culture. But when I get out of my household, it's Black American culture, and walking through life gave me a very interesting view of the world, and how I related to the world was almost like I was ambidextrous per se, because I to Nigerians, I wasn't fully Nigerian. To Black Americans, I wasn't fully Black. So I had to play in this zone of, all right, what am I as a young person? And trying to figure out, well, if I'm not fully from this culture and I'm not fully from this culture, who am I? Right. And so it made me in certain aspects, as me and you had conversations before, a chameleon, where I just molded myself to the situation until I got to learn to really embrace and love who I am as a person, and all the things that make me me, which was much later in life, right? And then really embrace that and use that as and recognize that's a gift, right? I think often a lot of us as people, we try to blend in, or we try to stand out. No, let me see. Try to fit in a way that
I'm going to invite something real quick, Taryell.
Yeah.
Because I can hear, like, as we went to like a lot of us, like that's when I started losing you, right? And like I would love to like just keep this real. Like, tell me about it for you. Like, what's your experience like?
My experience.
Tell me about that. That will help me. Like, because I'm hearing myself come out of your mouth. I'm like, I was born in New York, grew up outside of Camden, like in South Jersey. You know, like immigrant parents from Ghana, not quite Ghanaian, not quite a Black American. So like I'm experiencing what you experience as you talk about you. So tell me like what was that thing that you wanted to say? Like what was
I think it just made me not appreciate the unique person that I was, right? Like I had a gift of just being able to have both of those cultures, and which made me uniquely me, which was a gift of being able to see how we create connections in the world that create belonging. But that wasn't the outlier then. I was like, oh no, all right, you're not one of us, so you can't help us, or you can't add to this conversation because you're not one of us. But no, in fact, I am a piece of you, and if we could look at it this way, we can see the beautiful things that connect us together, and celebrate the things that are uniquely different that make up this lovely tapestry of us being together in community. And so that's what always resonated with me in my mind. Is like, they can't see the things that are beautiful that connect us, and then they can't see the things that are different that also elevates and celebrates us if we were to not do the othering thing. And so didn't get to use that gift so much later in life, but in your younger years, it was all about the othering and grouping and who belongs here and who doesn't belong here.
Yeah, it's says you say that because a part of me is like, even in adulthood, like I still feel that can be really present in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really do resonate with so much of what you're saying here. I get it from a lived experience perspective. And you said something that really like shook me inside. You said I had the gift of being able to be a part of both cultures, and like that hit me because I'll oftentimes look at let's not just see what it is that is missing, but recognize what is like entered the room because you were there. And when you talk about like the element of like having both cultures, I myself in this moment, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever really looked at it that way. It's like there's a hyphen, like Ghanaian American. Like that means I can bring both of those. Like that hyphen is a connection right there. Be both Ghanaian and American. Like that's how I'm thinking about it for myself right now. And what that brings into the space, because you have the benefit of having two worlds worth of experience as opposed to just one. So we're going to go off in a little bit of a different direction, but I'm curious if anything like comes for you as I say that.
Nah, I think you summed it up very well. And then, it doesn't have to be a hyphen. It could be, they both can coexist. Like both can be true, right? At the same time.
Yeah, there's the component of both can be true at the same time is something that I feel like as I hear you talk, I'm like, I can hear like the understanding of that, right? The components of like, there aren't things that are actually in competition with one another. As much as they both exist, they're both true. They can all be honored at the same, like simultaneously.
Yeah. That makes me think of, because, of course, if you don't notice, most of your listeners, I know you already know, but I do D&I work, and what I love to talk about. Sometimes I like to use analogy. I'm a foodie, and I love foods from all walks of life and culture. Like usually when I travel to different places, I want to go to where the locals eat. I want to eat just like they eat. I'm gonna try at least once to see if I like it. I remember my friends when I went to the Philippines, I ate balut off a street cart, and they was like, "What? You ate that? I don't even eat that." Well, I had to experience it at least once just to give it a try to see if it's something I like, right? But I like to use examples of food and metaphors. And I was doing a training one time, and a metaphor came to me like about gumbo, right? Gumbo is made so many different ways in the South, and it has all these ingredients. And some of these ingredients, sometimes you would think would clash with each other. Now, when you're making gumbo, do you throw all the food in the pot? No. Sometimes it takes us appreciating that element for what it is, and there's a time when you put this into the stew. There's a time when you put the pepper in, and you appreciate the element of what it is, and honor it in the way that it is, and how it brings flavor and spice to that pot of food that you're making. And they all, after it's all said and done, and you co-create that meal, they all have their own standout taste, and they all can be true in that dish without having the clash. But it's when we force people into be in this one big, this big pot of stew, we're gonna force you all to be in there at that same time. It creates this this not so great of molding, but if we honor the individuality of each of that spice and bring it in at the time where it's needed and allow it to shine the way it shines, that's the beautiful part of what we can co-create.
Really love this analogy right here. Like, because I'm imagining this. I'm not one to cook, right? And like in my mind, I'm like, I just want to toss it all in there. But like, you're right. Like, it's like this needs to be simmering for like 15 minutes, and then you bring this in. You know, these things need to be happening on the side with like get these things to be put together in a certain area, and then you can toss them all in later on after these have all marinated or beyond. And look, this is the extent of my cooking experience. I know like 5 or 6 different words. Like there's someone out there I'm great at a lot of things. I'm sure my wife is happy with so many things, but like my cooking is not it. But I do actually get that. I love that component though, of that component of like it has a reason, it has a time, you know, and bring it in as it's in there. And I want to talk a little bit about the DEI work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about you as you're doing it. I also want to talk about, I know you lead Rise Urban Nation, and I want to give a lot of space to that because I'm curious about it. I want to hear about like how it came about. But like, yeah, I want to give a little bit of space to some of this is it. I want to give some space to like what it is that you're doing out in the world right now, because I want to hear a little bit of what you're doing externally, because I'm very curious about like how you navigate yourself internally to keep showing up for the daily challenges and the daily opportunities that arise. So tell us a little bit about like, I'll put it this way: what's your epic quest in the world? What's that thing that's just like this? Yeah.
If I say my epic quest is really it's all about bringing human connections. That's what sits deeply with me, and doing it in a way that creates deep bonds that's formed between people, so that they can feel seen, feel heard, and valued. And during that authentic human connection, you know, people really exchange positive energy with one another, and creating not just safe spaces, but brave spaces for people to do that, so they can take the things that are not so pretty and ugly and have breakthroughs with that, and share and build trust with one another. You know, I think we devalue human connection in the way that we've done it through through a microwave generation of social media, internet. And I want to get to that home cooking that grandma used to, that marinates all day in the oven. That's why it was so good, of human connection, so that people can feel heard, understood, and really get that sense of belonging.
Yeah, you said the word like deep bonds, and that really struck me, because I'll hear people talk about like connecting, and when I hear them talk, I'm like, oh, you're really just networking. You're just like kind of growing people, not in your sphere of influence, not in your sphere of relationship. You're just people that you know, and again, there's a richness to what you're saying, where I'm like, if we slow down a bit to hear the nuance that's there, there's a lot of depth to it. Authentic human connection, going beyond safe spaces to creating brave spaces, right? Like, so, and I'm very glad that we brought it into like this component of like, look, at the end of the day, this is what I'm actually here. This is what I'm actually doing, right? I talked about mission, purpose, and calling at the beginning, and so I hear this is your calling. Tell me a little bit here about like how you're bringing that calling out to life right now. What are some of the ways that you're doing that?
So for my personal self, I'm leaning more into vulnerability, and you know, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability a lot, from how that changed her, and vulnerability is what really changed me in my leadership. Being willing to be vulnerable, right? To be the first to say, hey, I don't have all answers, I don't have it all together, but here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to tell you where like I've succeeded at and where I struggled at. And I offer that to you as a way for us to start conversation, so you could tell me where you succeeded and I struggle at, and maybe we can learn from each other together to create something beautiful.
When did you like All right, so we're talking about cooking a little bit here. Talk about this. I get curious about like what's your flavor of vulnerability, and I ask this here like from the standpoint of this. Like at a certain point, there was a time where I was being vulnerable, and eventually I got to a place where like things stopped being vulnerable to me. It just ended up being like I'm just open and transparent. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You ask me a question, I'll answer it. You want to know what's like what I'm struggling with right now? No problem. I'll put it out in the world because like I can get something. But there's a point that like leaves the world of transparency and goes into the actual world of vulnerability, right? Without having to like in this conversation, you have to like actually go into it. You can if you want. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious for you, like where does your line on like when it becomes vulnerable? When does that actually like live for you?
So vulnerability lives for me at the cups of um, sharing your wounds, your deepest, darkest fears and secrets, and the things that and the beliefs and ideologies that help you feel safe, that no longer serve you, or maybe they still serve you in a way, but they challenge you to think and feel differently, right?
Mm.
Once you leave the comfort of that and you go in and lean into the comfort or the discomfort of I don't know about this, and this is not this I don't feel safe here because I don't know anything about this, or this is a world that or a zone that typically has not um has caused me pain, right? So much
Mm.
pain that I don't want to go back to that place, right? um that's when you hit the cups of evolution, because sometimes people's greatest pain that they go through is the breakthrough for the next thing that they need to become. So most people who have experienced greatness in their life had to go through this at some point. They had to endure, or I want to say endure. They had to go through something to get to where they're at.
All right, so
And
now I got to ask you, all right? Because I know that you're experiencing greatness right now. Take me to one time, take me to one story, take me to one moment in your life where you had to go through something like that.
so I remember at the height of George Floyd, I was I was we were all experiencing lockdown, right? And so I'm a young man who grew up in the hood of Washington D.C. Now, obviously, I've I've excelled in life. I made it through some things to now where my wife and I, who's of Asian descent, now live in good old sunny San Diego in a very upper class, middle class gated community, right? And this is a whole new world for me. If you told me 100 years ago that this is the life I'd be living, I'd be like, no, I don't see that, right? Um, so, anyways, I'm in the job that I'm in. George Floyd happens. We shut down. We're in this gated community. And you start to see a division of different folks in the community I'm in. And once I go outside this community of people who are not particularly fond of Black Lives Matter, and there's some people who are fond of it. In the place that I work, we were a nice, happy family, and I was the single Black person on this team, and we went from communicating on the regular to just no communication at all. And I'm wondering, and I'm seeing what's happening in my neighborhood, and I'm like, the feelings of isolation start to kick in. And then we had a couple experiences in our neighborhood where, you know, my I'm driving through my neighborhood and there's like three Trump rallies going around, and my daughter's like, why are they doing that, daddy? And then, you have to explain things like that. And it was creating all these angst and anxiety for me. And so I remember talking one time to my manager at work, and I'm like, we're just talking about work, but nobody's talking about what's going on. Like, uh, not only internally where things happening, but externally in the world. And I'm like, do they not care? Or do they not see like what's going on? Like I know we were a family and we talked about things, but this thing for some reason nobody wants to talk about it. or nobody wants to say, hey, I saw what's on the news. Taryell, how are you feeling? What's going on? Like what family would normally do when things are happening, how we check in on each other. And so all this was heightened by also a fear from a previous job that I was at, where I had brought up some concerns to our white leaders in reference to programs we were building for the Black community, and I was shut down. And you know, eventually led me to leaving that organization. And so I was at the cusp of like, if I say something, what's going to happen? Is this going to be another situation like I had at the last company, or are they going to sit and be willing to listen? And so I had to face my own insecurity and fears. And eventually, long story short, held space for my team to have an honest dialogue and conversations about what everybody was experiencing in this time and space, and what this time and space meant to them, and when's the first time they learned about race, so we can get a understanding of each other. Now imagine I'm hurting, I'm in pain because of what I'm experiencing, both internally in the workplace and as a family, but I had to then find and muster up courage to hold space, have conversation, be vulnerable, and create conversation in that time and space, which is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life because of the emotion that was going through me, and trying to muster up space to hold space for others who may say something that may trigger and you know, bring up a wound for me as well, because not knowing what was going to happen from out of this space. And so I think that's one of the times that I can vividly recall that still sits with me to this day. The positive impact of that story is that after I did that, held more sessions within the whole entire 20,000 people organization, and then had a whole department created in a position that I went into, heading equity, diversity, inclusion for the whole entire county. So it had a positive end, but it was a very scary moment in life, and very challenging moment for me, and which allowed me to, as before when you were talking about, lean into vulnerability a little bit more. It became a little bit more, I wouldn't say easier, but it allowed me to know that I had the strength to go into that space, if that space called for it. It's like exercising the muscle, I guess.
Yeah, Taryell, I'm glad you shared this here. As you're speaking, I'm getting goosebumps. Right, I'm getting goosebumps from a variety of different components. Imagine hurting and mustering up the courage to do that. Like, I feel you on that. I feel you here, and you know, one of the things that feels like that I'm hearing here, like you're like, here's a positive of what came over to here. It's like, look, in that moment, people were searching for leadership, and you showed up as a leader. You had this space in there. You said, long story short, and just kind of like went to I got really curious about like what was happening with long story long. Like you're sitting there, you're recognizing that like, hey, there's something happening in the world that is like directly impacting me. Like, it's here, but no one's talking about it. And like, it's like, do they care? Do they not? Like, there's internal conversations taking place. And if I'm hearing, it's also isolating you more from the people that you're like, you're my family here. We're good overall. And it started out as one conversation, one time. It took tremendous like courage, vulnerability, strength to like hold the type of conversation you wanted to have held, while at the same time you yourself were also still going through your own process of it all. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love that everything else came out afterwards, but like I want to focus on like this like the one first, because I think like you didn't do this with the intent of having a new job come out of this and so on and so forth. Like mm-hmm. It felt like you were doing it because there was a need, and it was like, well, like, why did you do it?
So it goes back to that dad moment. I think I always growing up in the environments we grew up in and what I've experienced, I always knew that, every once in a while I'm gonna experience some type of discrimination. But after going through the pandemic, when you see your wife and daughter go through it, my wife being of Asian descent, and of course, if we remember during that time, and she's of Chinese descent, there was false rhetoric being spewed that COVID came from these Asian people, and these are the reason why. And then we had more spewing of Asian hate. And then my daughter being, mixed of the beautiful Asian culture that she's from and the Black culture she's from, seeing her treated differently triggered something in me that I just could not shake. I knew from that moment that whatever I do in this lifetime, I wanted to make sure I created a foundation that would at least empower her to have a different type of conversation than what I was having. I didn't want her to, for I don't think she would ever look down on me, but if there was something that were to happen in the future and she's like, well, Dad, why did nobody from your generation or you ever step up and say anything or do something differently? That wouldn't be the case here. I knew that as long as there was blood in my body and oxygen still breathing, that I am going to be a voice. I am going to create spaces. I'm no longer going to play small. I'm going to go head on and have the conversations that need to be had, create the spaces that need to be created so that, it doesn't look like this either or rhetoric. It doesn't look like, people being hateful because they feared what they didn't understand. Like we are all humans living on this earth. And I think the best thing we can do is create human connections with each other to have understanding of each other. It doesn't mean that we're always going to agree with each other, but at least we can have understanding of each other, with humility, with humanity and civility. And I think those are pieces that'll get lost when we get into this either or rhetoric, with this scared rhetoric, this hate rhetoric. And I want us to lead with love, with compassion, with curiosity, with humility, because we all have something special to share. We all have a gift. We all have a story. And when we recognize that in each other, there's so much beauty to come from that.
As you're talking, I remember, like, it takes me back to the days, weeks, and months after George Floyd was murdered, and the place of showing up in leadership around that. Like, I was in Singapore at the time, and then, like, looking at that and be like, how, like, going back to that element of being, like, in both cultures, like I just, my American culture was not Black American, it was white American culture, although I was also like so there's, like, just seeing and feeling like what it was like to step up into both leadership and connection. And one of my favorite phrase around leadership is convening. Like, those three words: leadership is convening. Taking it upon yourself to convene those and to have a conversation different than what everyone else is having. Because I really, like, see you, and I just feel you in that leadership there. And then taking it further to be like, and this is what it was rooted in: my family, my family experience. Like, again, like, so, and to see, like, how that continue to be a driving force here, I think is really important. I think I'm glad that we came to this part here, because a lot of times, like, I'll hear people share their stories, and I'm like, how did you, like, one day you woke up like this and you're kind of waiting for a solution, and the next day you woke up and you were like living the solution, and it's like what was that dream that happened in between, or what did you eat for dinner that night that like gave you the courage, and so on and so forth. And what I'm hearing from you is like you got rooted into your family and the role that you want to play in there. And you said like the number one thing is being a father, and I hear that, but like it was almost as though in that connection there, all else, like there was no other path other than to find the path of human connection with what was available to you at that time. Am I getting that right? Like this is my interpretation of it. So like let me know what's real for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for that instance, when it came to the George Floyd situation, that's what triggered me to that next level. There's another component too, because I did this program called Rise San Diego, which is a urban leadership program, which really takes you to the leadership development as an urban leader, to talk about the wounds and the things that the insecurities and how they show up in our leadership, whether we're leading community or leading in companies and organizations. And I had some time to go through all of that internally with myself. And one of the things that, through that journey of going through that Rise Leadership Program, we do what we call these community action projects, right? The first one I really brought forth that I wanted to do is I wanted to really bring different type of leadership and career coaching and all these different things that I felt were needed in the community, like workshops to urban communities. That fell short for various different reasons. And I remember somebody telling me that, you should really start a podcast. And then it wasn't until like afterwards, when I wasn't public speaking anymore, that the thing that I heard most when I used to, speak to youth, is that they would have limiting beliefs on what they can do and what they can be, right? Based on the examples they saw that maybe were around them, or because maybe the mom or dad played it too small, right? And let me not just put this on the youth. Some adults have limiting beliefs on what they can do, what they can be as well, right? And what I wanted to do is I said, how can I, as just one person, create a space where we can have dialogues like we're having right here, and have a plethora of people that they see that are from different walks of life, backgrounds, different individuals in the Black community that they don't often see, because they think when they see me, sometimes they're like, oh, I'm often a monolith, or I'm just one of a kind. There's nobody else like, and it's much easier for them to obtain, a rap career or sports. And I want to normalize Black excellence in all as many different forms that it comes with. That's why I started the podcast, and highlight all the people that they may not see until they start to see themselves in these different stories of people like yourself, people like me, people like that Black scientist that was never, highlighted on NBC or ABC. But there's a place that you can go to that you get to see people who may have felt like you felt once, went through some of the same struggles, who look like you, same complexion, curly, kinky hair. And we are here. We're doing amazing things, and you can too. There's not the path that you should follow is the path that most resonates with you. And sometimes you might be the trailblazer of that path, because you may not see somebody who's doing it yet, or that person may not be. But take combination pieces of all these different stories that you hear to charter your path and charge your path. A lot of times, our parents and counselors, they tell us to go on these paths because that's the best way they know how, right? But nobody knows how special and gifted you are, and the gifts that you have, and how to really put that together besides you. And sometimes it's going to take, a little bit of counseling from there, but a little bit of you envisioning and finding the things that you need to bring that vision to life. I'm sorry, I go on tangents sometimes.
The one thing you should know, Taryell, is that you never need to apologize to me. If you punch me in the face and you don't mean it, I'll take an apology, you know. But like, you never have to apologize for who you are to me, you know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to just like, I was just taking it in, just breathing in part of what's going on. I was like, oh, this is why he had so much success as a speaker. Like, this is why, like, it's like we had, and not like, if you don't know this year, you should definitely go check out the Rise Urban Nation podcast. Like, we had a chance where the two of us were having a conversation there, and you pulled out things out of me that I haven't actually like talked about in a very long time. You're phenomenal at creating those connections, and what I felt from you was like connection with myself, you know. So that then I can go and connect with others once again as a more complete, more full, more whole person, you know. So Outliers, I really do recommend go check out that. Go check out the whole podcast if you're interested in seeing things from like how like what if you're interested in seeing Taryell like in part of his element. As you can see, there's lots of different like ways that this person shines, lots of different ways. But if you're interested in seeing that and hearing that and hearing from me and other people along their journey, go take a listen to that. You know, I really do recommend that. And it's like, as you're talking, Taryell, it brings me to this part within myself where it's like, hey, I'm glad that we know each other, because I'm like, there's gonna be some really wonderful partnerships. You said like some adults don't know their limiting beliefs. I'm like, yeah, most of us don't, you know. Most of us don't. And I had I got involved with like youth leadership, and I saw like how much potential there was with the youth, you know. And I also saw, like, to your point, like what they saw around them, where the adults in their lives like actually able to show up as like grounded, powerful, like in support, like having gone like were they the examples that were going to really propel them forward, or were they actually like in their best intentions to keep their children safe, were they actually holding them into a limited vision of what they thought was available to them? So I get a smile on my face, because I'm like, oh, together, like our combo, like we cover it all, you know.
Yeah, because you know this next group of leaders that's going to come out, the future, they can't be what they can't see. And sometimes they need to see elements of what we're speaking of, and then take that to create the next thing that needs to be created within themselves or within, you know, society. So, yeah.
So we're gonna do this. We're gonna wrap up here. I'm gonna end it with 3 questions. This is a new question I want to ask today here. But I love to find out like about a world of difference, and I see like where like we can benefit from that, right? And so, Taryell, the question I have for you: you've had a successful life. You've in my mind, you've defied the odds. You know, like you talk about like your experience growing up. I live in San Diego. Like there's something to be living the life that you're living, right? The question I have for you is like, what's something that works for you, like that works super well for Taryell, that like if other people try to take on, like they would either like completely fail out, or they wouldn't be able to get like anywhere near the return on investment? Like what's something that like you do that just like, look, this just works for me?
I would say, as my uncle would say, boy, you have to gift the gab, right? And you know that may not be your cup of tea, right? But it works well for me. I've been able to, you know, do a podcast. I've been able to do hundreds of public speaking events, and it's something that allows me to be successful as I am, and allows me to form connections, build influence, help move decisions, and motivate change. So that's my superpower.
Yeah. And like, I what I'm grateful for is that you keep putting yourself in positions where that matters, you know. Like, it's not like you have the gift of gab, so I started writing. It's like, no, you have the gift of gab, so I make these pages, like, because that's what everyone else does. I have to write a blog, because no, like, you know how to have great conversation and make people feel that connection through the element of conversation. So make a podcast. Makes perfect sense. You're like speaking.
Bet.
like I love that alignment there. I love that alignment. So thank you for that.
Bet.
I'm gonna squeeze in one more here. So now it's gonna be 4 questions. But I get really curious. Like, so I pointed out earlier that like I feel heart, I feel depth. Like when you say different things, I hear more than what's coming, more than just like the words that you're saying there, because it feels like you have a rich experience, but like there's also this element of like creating yourself, right?
Mm.
Like I get really curious, like how does like Taryell look like create himself? Like I don't know if it's mantras, I don't know if it's things like what do you do to like elevate out of the elevate out of the normal and like create yourself as the leader that you show up in over and over again? And it may not be that you're able to accomplish it 100% of the time,
Mhm.
but I really am curious about like what is your process? What are some things you do to create yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm in a forever state of evolution because I'm always in the state of learning. I apply I invest in myself by trying to become the best version of myself, and then um, as I do that, I often find I come up with new dreams, and then I start to chase those dreams. And I really ground myself to make sure I'm not living someone else's life, because sometimes you hear the voice of your parents or the people who say, "Oh, when somebody says you should do this," I step away from that to say, "What is it that you would like to do next?" Right? And then really look at who am I trying to become, and who am I currently, and who am I trying to become, right? What do I want to learn next? How do I want to grow, right? um and so those are the things that I ground myself in. Yeah.
Awesome, Taryell. So let's do this here. If someone wants to continue the conversation with you, if someone wants to contribute to what it is that you're doing, if someone like has a story that they want to share, or they have an organization where they're like, look, there's some conversations that need to take place here, and like I'm not sure how to lead it, but I could use your support. Like, what's the best way for people to like continue to build their connection with you?
Yeah, so I'm on all social media channels. I'm on LinkedIn, Taryell Simmons. You can shoot me a message, email Simmons, SIMMONS at Taryells.com. So check me out at Rise Urban Nation, www.riseurbannation.com. There's more information about the podcast if you want to be on the podcast, or we have a campaign coming up called Run the Receipts, where we're really looking at how do we keep the conversation going on what best practices are out there between all the different organizations. Some of these organizations have pledged money since George Floyd passed away and Black Lives Matter, and we want to see what's been going on out there and see how we can be a part of the conversation, help amplify that work, and help have more conversations around that work. So if you're interested, definitely hit us up. Yeah, so let's stay connected. And then I'm sure there'll be all of my links in the show notes. I'll make sure that those are given to you as well.
All right. Yeah, hit us up with it. I like to make sure that people actually get the chance to like hear it and such, because like I feel like if I'm listening and I'm interested, I'm in. I've made many commitments to go to a show note and never ever been. So I want to make sure that we don't miss it like in real time.
Right.
And then the last thing then here we'll end it with this here. Like, and this is my gift to you. I call this the time capsule question. And this here is just an opportunity for you to you've lived a lot. You have a lot of experience. You have a lot that you know in this current moment. And there's going to be life that's going to happen. And in the future, you might actually forget some of this. In the future, you might actually like need to be reminded of something that this current you knows. What's a message that you want to leave for the future Taryell when he needs it most?
I think as you continue to go through this journey, take time out for self, and rest, right? I think a young lady said this to me on my podcast probably like a month or two ago. It's like rest is restorative and revolutionary. Let me repeat that for you. Rest is restorative and revolutionary in this society that we live in. That's always about go this grind culture. You have to get it. That we haven't taken the time to rest. if anything that Mother Nature has taught us well is that, there's a period where you plant seeds, you grow the seeds, you really, grind in, for lack of better terms, into the dirt, plant the seeds, water it, and then, the fruit, the stock, the livestock grows. And then you go into the harvest where you celebrate, you eat, and then you relax and rest. Mother Nature has taught us well on a cycle of life. And we as humans are no different from that cycle. And within that rest, the way you be your best self is, making sure you have peace of mind, body, and soul. So rule number 1, protect your peace.
There we have it. That one's there for you, Taryell. I'm grateful for you. I'm glad that we are developing our relationship. I look forward to the bonds that we create and to the ways that we choose to be visible out in the world. There's something to it that goes beyond just our individual businesses and our livelihoods, but also just like helping to keep expanding like what people can see, keep expanding what could be possible for people. And like you said, like just like we are pieces of each other. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for this journey, and I look forward to everything that comes, not just from us, but from everything from here.
I'm grateful as well, brother. And I can't wait to see what we co-create along this journey.
Super excited. I'll talk to you soon.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.